What's going on, guys? This is Sam, and today I want to talk about the 2018 iPhone lineup, all the new rumors we've been hearing there. We may have finally heard the pricing for the higher-end models in addition to the lower-end 6.1-inch model as well. We got our first information about the Apple Watch Series 4 from KGI. Lots to talk about, so let's go ahead and jump in. So it's pretty early in 2018 still, but we already know a lot about these new iPhones. We know that in the second half of 2018, probably in the September, October, November timeframe, if history tells us anything, we will be seeing 3 new iPhone models this year, which is a little bit different than in years past. So the 2017 lineup is basically going to be the flipped version of what we see later this year in 2018. Instead of having 2 lower-end iPhone models and 1 higher-end iPhone model, this year we're going to have 2 higher-end iPhone models and 1 lower-end iPhone model. Out of the 3 new iPhone models coming later this year, the one that definitely interests me the most is that cheaper or lower-end model. We're hearing it's going to have a 6.1-inch LCD display, and Apple's going to bring a lot of the features from the iPhone X to this device. We hear it's going to have a similar design with similar features like Face ID, no home button, and a bezel-less display, but it's not going to have those ultra premium features like the best camera or maybe even the fastest processor. And because this is a cheaper model, Apple is going to have to keep the cost down somehow. So there's going to be a number of things that aren't on this cheaper model that are going to be present on the 2018 iPhone X and the iPhone X Plus. We'll talk about those in just one second. For example, this cheaper 6.1-inch iPhone won't have stainless steel going around the edges like on the 2017 iPhone X. Apple's going to be opting for a cheaper material like aluminum. Now, stepping up from that cheaper model, we have a second generation version of the iPhone X. We don't know a whole lot about this, but we do know it will continue to have that 5.8-inch OLED display. It's going to be gorgeous, and it will probably have a very similar body to the current iPhone X. And then we have the highest end model of the 3, the iPhone X Plus, a device that a lot of people are absolutely ecstatic about. It's going to have up to a 6.5-inch OLED display. We've heard 6.2, 6.3, or even 6.5 inches for this device. So it's going to be really big. It's going to be OLED. It's going to be gorgeous, but it will probably be the most expensive of the bunch. Up until just recently, we had no idea what these higher-end iPhone models would cost. In the past, I had predicted that the iPhone X Plus could reasonably get up to $1,300 or $1,400, which would be absolutely ridiculous. And we're seeing with this cycle, with the first generation of iPhones that were more than just $700 or $800 or even $900, that consumers don't like paying $1,000+ for phones. So a new research note from RBC Capital Markets picked up by Mac Rumors has some really good news for what the prices of these 2018 iPhones could look like. For the second generation iPhone X, RBC Capital Markets is reporting that this device could retail for $899, which is $100 cheaper than the 2017 first generation iPhone X. It gets even more exciting when we talk about the iPhone X Plus. Rather than this device costing $1,300, $1,400, maybe even $1,500 as I had thought in the past, RBC Capital Markets reports that this device will start at $999, which is the base price for the 2017 iPhone X. And then finally, for the lowest end iPhone of the bunch, we are hearing $799, which in reality really isn't that cheap. I remember just a few years ago, iPhones were usually $649 for the base model, and they have continually gotten more expensive year after year, which makes sense because the phones seem to be getting more than marginally better every year, but at the same time, $800 for an iPhone, $900, $1,000 for an iPhone is still a lot of money, and that's why I think there's definitely a space in Apple's 2018 product lineup for the iPhone SE2 that we've heard so much about. I want to pivot now to the Apple Watch Series 4, which is a device that we really haven't heard that much about in comparison to everything that we know about the 2018 iPhone lineup set to launch later this year. We don't know that much at all about the Apple Watch Series 4, at least until a new report from KGI was released. The latest KGI report was picked up by 9to5Mac, and inside of here they talk about a lot of exciting things: a bigger screen, a bigger battery, and possibly a new design. The design of the Apple Watch is very iconic. I like the way it looks. At the same time, I've been ready for a design refresh for around the past year. In summer of 2017, we had heard rumblings that the Apple Watch Series 3, the watch I have on my wrist right now, was going to be completely redesigned and look a lot different. I was hoping we would see a circular watch face. As we found out in September, that was not the case. It is still a square watch face. Not a whole lot changed other than getting that cellular or LTE functionality. But going into this year, I do hope that we see a pretty radical redesign, and we're hearing from the same report that the screen size on the Apple Watch Series 4 will be 15% larger, which was never a big problem that I had with the Apple Watch. I always thought that the screen size, at least on the 42mm, was big enough for me, but if they're going to give me more screen for the same price, you can't really complain. According to KGI, the Apple Watch Series 4 will also be getting a larger battery on the inside. So now that we're hearing bigger battery and larger screen, I feel like there's no way Apple could do both of those and retain the exact same body now, because some people were already speculating maybe the screen on the Apple Watch, maybe the bezels will get smaller and the screen will get larger in the same design that we have now. But if the battery is getting bigger and the screen is getting bigger, I don't know if it's possible for Apple to do that in the current chassis. Finally, on top of everything else, the bigger screen, the bigger battery, and the new design, KGI is reporting that the Apple Watch Series 4 will have more health sensors. We don't know exactly what health sensors are coming. Right now, there is a heart rate sensor on the inside. It works really well. It can even let you know if your heart rate is irregular, or maybe you should go ahead and go to your doctor or the emergency room to get it checked out. I think I've read a couple stories where that feature on the Apple Watch has actually saved lives, which is crazy. KGI themselves does not suggest what new health sensors could be coming, but a while back, I think right around the time that we were hearing that the Apple Watch Series 3 could have a new design, Bloomberg came out with a report talking about new sensors that Apple was putting R&D, research and development into. One of the more interesting ones that the article talked about was non-invasive glucose monitoring, and if Apple was actually able to make this happen on any future Apple Watch, not the Series 4 specifically, it would be huge for a number of reasons. The biggest reason being that right now is that the only way to measure glucose is by breaking the skin and drawing blood, and that's very invasive for a lot of people because you constantly will be breaking the skin to measure your glucose level. But this report says that Apple is working on it. They're looking into it. I don't think that there's any way that the glucose monitoring will be ready by the Apple Watch Series 4, but I wanted to bring that up because for people that are diabetic, having an Apple Watch in the future that can measure their glucose without breaking the skin would actually be life-changing. It would be really crazy. We don't know if that is going to be the case for sure. We don't even know if Apple has found a way to successfully test glucose non-invasively. But they are working on new health sensors for Apple Watches in the future, and I look forward to seeing what they've come up with for the Apple Watch Series 4. At this point, I'm absolutely convinced that Apple genuinely cares about accessibility across all their products, whether it's the settings that are already there on the iPhone that you don't find on a lot of Android phones, to working on non-invasive glucose monitoring for a future Apple Watch. They've shown a dedication to those with accessibility needs. And just recently, they actually submitted some really cool new emojis to the Unicode Consortium the other day. They want to see part of the standard emoji set at some point in the future. There's some really good ones here, and I'm glad that Apple was pushing for this because I would have never thought about it had I not read this article from Emojipedia. You have a hearing aid right here on someone's ear, dogs to help those who are visually impaired, a person with visual impairments that is walking with a cane, two people in wheelchairs, one looks like it's manual, one looks like it is electric or automatic. Then you have two prosthetic limbs, an arm flexing, which is really cool looking, and then a prosthetic leg as well. And this last one right here is the deaf sign in American Sign Language. I really hope that these make the cut. I think these are very important. I think the accessibility community deserves some representation in the emoji set, and I hope that these don't just come to iOS in the future. I hope we see these across all devices as we continue to be more inclusive with the new emojis coming every year. And finally, I want to highlight an article that I read by The Verge that I thought was very fascinating about the outdatedness of the iPad Mini 4. They brought up a lot of good points here now that the new $329 iPad is available that was announced at Apple's March event. With Apple Pencil support, Apple still sells the iPad Mini 4, and there's a lot of problems with them doing this. The Verge notes in their article that the iPad Mini 4 just doesn't make sense for a number of reasons, because it's less powerful than the new iPad. It is $70 more expensive, and it has a smaller screen. On top of all of that, there is no Apple Pencil support. So why would anyone in their right mind spend $70 more on a device that is less powerful, has a smaller screen, probably has a worse camera, and doesn't support the Apple Pencil when they could buy the new $329 iPad with a better processor, probably a better camera, a larger screen, and support for Apple's stylus? And I bring this up to raise the question of whether or not we'll ever see another iPad Mini refresh. I remember people lost their minds. They were so excited for a smaller version of the 9.7-inch iPad back in 2013 or 14 when the very first iPad Mini was released. It did pretty well for a while, and then in 2014 or 15 when the iPad Mini 4 was released, people just sort of stopped caring. They didn't want an iPad Mini. We wanted larger screened iPads. Will the iPad Mini 4 become that next iPod Touch 6, where it is on Apple's website? Some people still buy it. It's there for a very niche audience, but it has outdated specs and is definitely not a smart purchase overall. I don't know the answer to that question. I want to hear your thoughts on this and everything else I talked about down below. It's just weird to see the iPad Mini 4 as a part of Apple's modern product lineup because we've got new iPads coming later this this year with bezel-less design and Face ID. We just saw the new $329 iPad. There's new iPhones coming with Face ID. Everything is getting better and better, but the iPad mini lineup has just remained stagnant. Once again, I love hearing your thoughts about everything down below, so let me know what you think about the 2018 iPhone pricing, about the Apple Watch Series 4, about the iPad mini lineup, and the possibility of red or gold iPhones coming in the future down below. If you enjoyed watching this video, it does help me out if you take 1 second to drop a like, and of course hit subscribe for more videos like this in the future. If you like the shirt I'm wearing, you can head over to shop.iupdateos.com and check out this one and 3 others like it. Your support there is always appreciated. For now, I've been Sam. I hope all of you are doing great, and I will talk to you in my next video.